Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow the House of Representatives will be taking up H.R. 4275, the Coast Guard Reauthorization Act of 2025. That is the biannual legislation that updates and codifies changes and reforms to America's oldest continuous maritime service, the Coast Guard. It's actually called the First Fleet because technically, the Coast Guard is older than the U.S. Navy. This bill contains many good bipartisan provisions that, again, are addressing many of the challenges that the Coast Guard faces every day, whether it's drug interdiction, obviously doing the work in terms of our coastal littoral regions of the country and making sure that we have safe passage of commercial and civilian maritime activity. Included is a provision to reach out to a great ally, Finland, to update and modernize our icebreaker fleet, which again, our Polar Star large icebreaker is now 50 years old, and it is long past due, particularly with the challenges in the Arctic with Russia and China, to make sure that we update and modernize our Coast Guard and icebreaking fleet. This bill also contains a long overdue provision to reform the Coast Guard statutes regarding protecting victims of sexual assault and harassment, both within the Coast Guard service and also the Coast Guard Academy. I represent New London, Connecticut, which is home to the Coast Guard Academy. It's an outstanding institution that builds future leaders for the Coast Guard. It actually has a large international contingent of allies such as Iceland, Pacific Island nations that come to learn really at the cutting edge institution in terms of coastal activities that are there. But like all the military academies, there has been a shadow of, unfortunately, activity regarding female cadets over the years that have had to really put up with totally unacceptable conduct and really forcing them into almost an impossible position in terms of reporting this activity over the years. The bill includes a safe to report policy which will protect members reporting sexual assault. Again, sometimes incidents occur where there may be minor misconduct issues that both the victim and the perpetrator are involved in, and that risk of being punished for those minor misconduct has really inhibited people to come forward and report sexual assault. This is an issue which was the subject of exhaustive hearings at the Oversight Committee over really the last 8 years. Our dear belated Congressman Elijah Cummings conducted many of those hearings. There were brave whistleblowers that came forth. Dr. Kim Young McClear, who is now retired commander in the Coast Guard, testified before that committee and talked about, again, some of the hard experiences that she went through. Other military academies, West Point, Annapolis, have actually adopted safe to report policies, and tomorrow's bill will get the Coast Guard Academy in line with those institutions. The bill also extends the safe to report policy to the entire Coast Guard personnel, the entire service. That was done administratively by the last commandant of the Coast Guard, Linda Fagan, who, again, I think was very focused in terms of trying to make sure that the safe to report policy was going to be in place to eradicate activities that really harms the readiness and effectiveness of the Coast Guard. Women Coast Guard officers are some of the finest, most talented people that, again, are doing the important work of the Coast Guard, and we need to make sure that there is a statutory structure in place to make sure that any of this type of activity, people will be able to report it and get a remedy and a response, in some cases punishment, to make sure that, again, people are not hindered because of this unacceptable conduct. So tomorrow, when we take up this bill, it is going to be a day in which, again, those brave women who came forward to testify and report their experience and sometimes watch their dreams and their careers end because of the fact that they were subjected to really just unacceptable pressure and retaliation for reporting. By law, that is now going to be a thing of the past. Long overdue, And again, I just want to, again, take a moment to publicly thank Commander Young McClear and her colleagues for having the courage to step forward and make sure that the Congress is aware of the situation and will end it with passage of tomorrow's bill. I yield back.